Unit 5, Lesson A, page 84, Exercise B.
Cooperatives. Cooperatives, or co-ops, are different from corporations or other conventional business models. The main difference is that the employees are also the owners of the cooperative. They agree to cooperate by selling their products or services together rather than separately. If the co-op makes money, the members share the profits. This allows all co-op members to earn a good living. Cooperative businesses are quite diverse. They provide every imaginable kind of goods and services and can range from quite large to very small. For example, in Boston, computer experts decided to work for themselves and formed Tech Collective. At Tech Collective, customers can simply walk in and have their computer problems solved by the same people who own the business.
Page 85, Exercise E.
Peruvian Weavers, a profitable artisan cooperative. In the Andes Mountains of Peru, people in the village of Chinchero were living in poverty during much of the 20th century. Their agricultural products, potatoes, barley, and sheep, were bringing in very little income. In 1996, the women of Chinchero became entrepreneurs and started the Chinchero Weaving Cooperative. They began selling their traditional handmade fabrics to tourists. Now the women generate more income for their work, and their earnings stay within the community. Starting a co-op was an effective way for villagers in Chinchero to bring in more money. However, before deciding to start a cooperative, owners of small, home-based businesses need to assess their situation carefully.
Page 86, Exercise A.
Snake hunters find cure for joblessness. Most people run away when they see a poisonous snake, but not the Arulas of India. For generations, the Arulas made their living by catching wild snakes, including deadly poisonous cobras. In the past, the snake skins were sold and made into luxury goods such as handbags and boots, but that changed in 1972, when the Indian Parliament adopted the Wildlife Protection Act, making the Arula's main income source suddenly illegal.
Page 88, Exercise C.
Kudzu, originally brought to the United States from Japan in 1876, is an invasive plant species. During the 1930s, the U.S. government provided farmers with 85 million kudzu seedlings to hold dry soil in place. That may have been a mistake because kudzu can grow very quickly, up to 60 feet or 18 meters in one growing season. It can cover as many as 2,500 acres of land each year. Currently, kudzu covers around 7.4 million acres of land in the United States.
Page 87, Exercises B and C. A talk about a cooperative business.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to speak. My name is Marcia Nolan, and I'm the director of Worldwide Co-op. I hope that some of you have heard of our organization. Great. Well, Worldwide Co-op exists to support cooperative enterprises of all kinds. We provide online classes to help you start a new co-op or to help you manage your existing co-op. And because a lot of the information you find online only applies to conventional companies, not to cooperatives, we provide a library of information at our website. The information you'll find there is free, it's all about co-ops, and it's available to you at any time. Today, I'd like to give you some information about a co-op in Chennai, India. It's an unusual co-op since it was formed in response to wildlife protection measures. And since all of you are members of wildlife organizations, I think you'll find the story of this co-op to be especially interesting and relevant to you. The story begins in 1972. That was the year that India took a major step in wildlife protection and passed the Wildlife Protection Act. And although that law has been beneficial to wildlife, it wasn't so good for a small tribe called the Arulas. You see, they made their living catching snakes such as the Indian cobra, which were sold for their skins. Even before 1972, the Irulas lived in relative poverty, despite being some of the only people in India with the necessary skills to catch poisonous snakes. After 1972, however, things went from bad to worse. It became illegal to sell these snakeskins. What happened next, however, could serve as a model for many places. The Irulas became entrepreneurs. They saw a need for something that only they could provide: snake venom. The venom is used to produce antivenom, the only known cure for poisonous snake bites. And because there are approximately 46,000 deaths from snake bites in India each year, there is a huge demand for venom. Since the Irulas knew how to handle cobras and other poisonous snakes, they decided to cooperate and work together. They formed the Irula Snake Catchers Industrial Cooperative Society, and they were back in the snake business, but with one big difference. In contrast to their past practices, the Irulas no longer needed to kill the snakes in order to generate an income. Now the society has around 300 members, and they catch snakes just as they've done for many years, but now they carefully milk the snake's venom before returning them to the wild. That involves sinking the snake's fangs into a piece of leather, which releases the liquid venom, and collecting the venom in a container. Using this natural venom is the only way to produce the life-saving antivenom now found in most hospitals in India. The snakes are not killed, thousands of human lives are saved, and the Irulas earn more money from the venom than they used to get for the snake skins. Even better, the co-op members are all owners, so there's no longer a middleman getting rich from the Irulas' hard work. All of the wealth generated by the sale of venom stays in the Irula community. These days, Irula families are doing better, their children are attending school, and several species of snakes that might otherwise have been killed to extinction are doing well in the wild. The reason I'm telling you all of this is simple. The ideas behind the Irulas co-op can be used in many places. After all, the Irulas have found an effective and sustainable way to use wild animals without harming them. Instead of being killed, the snakes are being captured and then released. This way, the snakes are benefiting the Irula people by providing income, and they're benefiting other people in India by providing an important medicine. Now, I know that I'm speaking to a diverse group of people. You protect a wide variety of wildlife, and the different species that you want to protect can't all be milked for their venom. But what all of you can do is to assess your situation. If endangered animals in your country are being killed and sold, it's important to understand the reasons, especially the economic benefits that come from killing the animals. You might find another way for people to earn even more money than before by not killing the animals. If you need help with any of this, Worldwide Co-op has many information resources along with our online classes. Please feel free to visit the website, send an email, or give me a call. Thanks again for inviting me. And now I'm happy to answer your questions.
Page 95, Exercise C.
The Give Back Box. The concept behind the Give Back Box is pretty simple. When someone receives a box from an online retailer such as Amazon or Overstock, they can fill it with clothing or household goods they want to donate. Using a free shipping label, the box is shipped to a local charity where the goods are sold at very affordable prices or given away for free to people who need them. Give Back Box itself is not a charitable organization. They're a for-profit company, but one of their fundamental goals is to do more than make money. Founder Monica Wheela sees the company as a way to help people in need and, at the same time, help online companies demonstrate their social responsibility. So far, the response from customers has been good. They're eager to help others by donating goods, and they're happy to reuse their cardboard boxes as well.
Page 97, Exercise C. 1.
One is a huge drug manufacturer, and this one looks like a small company that makes handbags and backpacks. They both seem to be very different from our company.
2.
That's interesting, though surprising as well. I thought they were just interested in making a profit.
3.
Their customers like the idea of doing something to help kids, and State Bags is doing well as a business, especially for a young company.
Well, that's the kind of outcome we're looking for, too.
4.
Even though we're a small company, we can still make a difference. Why don't we do some brainstorming?
Page 96. Exercise B. A meeting about social responsibility.
Okay, let's get started. I'm glad that all of you could make it to the meeting this morning. The topic under discussion today is social responsibility, especially as that idea relates to our company. Up until now, we haven't thought much about this idea, you know. The idea that we as a company can contribute to our community, our world, to make it a better place. So I brought some information. There's a copy for each of you. Okay. This is information about two businesses, one large and one small. They both demonstrate how social responsibility can be a fundamental value of a business. For these companies, it's part of their basic business mission. Yes, Jamila.
Thanks, Guang. I've been thinking about this for some time now. In my opinion, as a company, we take good care of our employees, but we're not doing much in terms of giving back to the larger community. I'm really interested in this question of how we can do more.
That's great. I'm happy to hear you've been thinking about this too.
I definitely have been. Other companies seem to be more active in our community. You know, they support charities.
That's true. Lucas?
Yeah, I'm wondering why you chose these two companies. One is a huge drug manufacturer, and this one looks like a small company that makes handbags and backpacks. They both seem to be very different from our company. So, could you explain why you chose these particular companies?
Sure. I think they're both good models for us. Even though we're a software engineering firm, the concept of social responsibility is the same as it is with these companies. We want to give back to our community and make the world a better place, right? So these examples can help us think about what actions would be appropriate for our company.
Guang, there's quite a lot of information here. Can you explain what these companies are doing? You know, in a nutshell.
Sure. Thanks, Alice. The large company is GlaxoSmithKline, GSK, the big pharmaceutical company. Although they're doing several things that are socially responsible, for example, they provide medical training in places that need it, and they're working to reduce noise levels and energy usage at their manufacturing plants, the most impressive thing they've done is to make medications more affordable and accessible in parts of the world that are not very wealthy.
That's interesting, though surprising as well. I thought they were just interested in making a profit. You know, they are such a big pharmaceutical company.
Well, they are making a profit in every country where they do business. So social responsibility doesn't mean no profit. That's a key. We can be socially responsible without decreasing profits. Jamila?
I'd like to know what this other company does, State Bags. They seem more like our company. They're a small business, or at least they're not a multinational corporation.
Sure. State Bags makes these beautiful backpacks and bags that you see in the picture. From the beginning, this business has had a buy one, give one model. So for every bag a customer buys, State Bags donates a backpack full of supplies, mostly things for school, to a child who needs it.
That sounds great. What a good idea. And how has the response been from their customers?
Well, the response has been good. Their customers like the idea of doing something to help kids, and State Bags is doing well as a business, especially for a young company.
Well, that's the kind of outcome we're looking for, too. If our customers feel good about doing business with us, and we're turning a profit at the same time, it's a win-win situation.
Exactly. Even though we're a small company, we can still make a difference. Why don't we do some brainstorming?
Unit 10, Lesson A, page 184. Exercise A.
Hey, Rika, what's wrong?
Nothing. I'm just reading the paper.
Well, you're frowning as you read. Facial expressions always show your emotions. For example, frowning signals sadness or fear.
But doesn't that change depending on a person's culture? I'm Indonesian, and you're Canadian. We probably just make different facial expressions.
Actually, culture doesn't matter. Back in the 19th century, Charles Darwin found that all people typically make the same facial expressions. He reasoned that these expressions must be a universal human characteristic.
Really? Has anybody else looked into this? Or was it just Darwin?
Well, in the 1960s, a psychologist named Paul Ekman confirmed Darwin's theory. He conducted an experiment. He showed photos of facial expressions to people of many different cultures. The results showed that people across all cultures recognize and make the same facial expressions for the same emotions.
So, culture doesn't matter then, right?
Well, for some facial expressions. Neither Darwin nor Ekman could confirm that all facial expressions are universal. And Ekman also wondered whether there are things that universally trigger certain emotions.
So, you mean to say that what impacts our emotions is the same for everyone?
Well, yes and no. Certain things are universal. For example, everyone gets scared whenever there's a sudden, unexpected movement in their field of vision.
That makes sense. A sudden movement might signal danger, and there's a tendency for humans to react to danger. We do it instinctively.
Right, but not everything triggers the same emotion in different people. For example, one person might associate the smell of the sea with something enjoyable, like a vacation.
But for someone who has gotten seasick or been stung by a jellyfish, the ocean isn't so pleasant. So the smell might cause negative emotions.
Exactly. Our reaction is influenced by our experience, and often our personality.
Page 186, Exercise B, and page 187, Exercise C. A lecture about fear.
Good morning, everyone. Before I get started with today's lecture, I want to remind you that my teaching assistant, Tran, has office hours this afternoon from 2 to 4. If you need help with your research assignment, I suggest you drop by. Remember that your research proposal is due next Thursday. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the human fear response. We're going to address the question of whether we learn to be afraid of certain things, or if we instead inherit something from our ancestors that triggers our fear. Let's start by thinking about our distant ancestors, people who lived tens of thousands of years ago. Back then, reacting instinctively to something like a falling rock or a hungry bear was an extremely important reaction to have. It meant that the person was more likely to survive, more likely to live long enough to have children, and more likely to pass on his or her genes to those children. In other words, that fear response was important for survival, and for survival of the species. Now, fast forward to today. Obviously, we don't have to deal with falling rocks or hungry bears very often. So, what does the fear response do for us? Well, the fear response still keeps us out of trouble and helps us to survive. Imagine that you're driving a car, and the car in front of you suddenly stops. There's a series of events that takes place in our brain that makes our bodies react. In this case, by putting our foot on the brakes, and it takes place before we even realize what's happening. It all happens much, much faster than our conscious thought processes. But the question is, do we inherit our knowledge of what to fear from our ancient ancestors? Is it an automatic reaction? Or is this fear response learned? It's not quite as easy to answer as you may think. In the 1980s, Mineka, Davidson, and others conducted some fascinating experiments with young monkeys that were raised in a laboratory. These monkeys had zero experience with being outdoors, right? So the researchers showed the monkeys some snakes. They wanted to see if the lab monkeys were instinctively afraid of the snakes, and they found that the young monkeys were not afraid at all. It was not an inherited fear response. However, the researchers next showed the young lab monkeys a video of wild monkeys having fearful reactions to snakes. After that, the lab monkeys became afraid of snakes too, as they learned to associate the sight of a snake with a fearful reaction. So, the young lab monkeys learned the fear from watching the wild monkeys, in a sense. But here's the interesting part. When the researchers changed the videos so that the wild monkeys appeared to be afraid of flowers, the lab monkeys did not develop a fear of flowers. So, what we see here is the inherited aspect of fear. What we inherit is a tendency to fear certain things. The same things our ancient ancestors feared. The lab monkeys had inherited a tendency to fear snakes, so they quickly learned that fear from others. But they didn't inherit a tendency to fear flowers. The lab monkeys didn't learn from watching a video that they should be afraid of flowers. Those were some pretty smart monkeys. We all assume that fear is such an instinctive response that it must be inherited. But in some cases, we actually learn a fear from someone or from experience. So the human fear response is both learned and inherited. More research is being done into exactly which human fears are instinctive and which are learned. This brings me to the next bit of research we will discuss,